Number 6. Luvdisc doesn't evolve into Mamanbu. I know just about everything has been said about this, but seriously, what they did to Luvdisc was still cruel and unusual. I mean, look at them! We got their 2 pictures right next to each other. How does one not evolve into the other? It makes no sense! It's not like, for example, Kingler and Crawdont, which I love to harp on, but seriously, one's a crab, the other's a crawfish. So I could sort of understand it. But why have 2 different evolutionary lines based on the discus fish, of all people? I could understand having several cat lines or several dog lines, since they're part of our everyday lives, but the freaking discus fish? And on top of that, one has a base stat total of 330. So what do? They make a Pokemon that looks exactly like it would if it evolved from it, except they don't actually have it evolved from it. As I said, cruel and unusual. And the only reason why this doesn't rank higher is because the writing was on the wall. Because of increasingly loud rumors from sites such as PokeExperto, for example. So for all those Pokemon who aspire to evolve someday, just remember, Satoshi Tajiri's oatmeal is sacred. Don't touch it. Number 5, the loss of some important TMs. There were a few that we used in our everyday competitive lives, such as Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, Focus Punch, Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock isn't coming back, so that means very few 5th generation Pokemon will actually have it. But there are a few others that we lost, presumably because they decided to upgrade the moves, which we're going to come back to a bit later on, such as, for example, Giga Drain, Drain Punch, and Bullet Seed. So those are all very important losses in a way. Of course, we lost stuff like Recycle and Avalanche that no one used anyway, stuff like Snatch and Steel Wing as well, but those are pretty big losses nonetheless. And by the way, we still don't have our elemental punching TMs yet. Come on! They introduced tutors in Emerald and Platinum, and now they're probably going to have to do it all over again in the deluxe version to Black and White. So, what are you waiting for? Just give us the damn TMs already! Number 4. When changing forms, Rotom now changes types. It's the ghost typing that goes, by the way, not the electric type. But in a way, it sort of makes sense, because when it possesses an appliance, it's no longer really a ghost. So, for example, you should be able to punch the shit out of a freezer, for example. But still, this is going to change a lot of things competitively, since the Rotom forms were sought after for their excellent defensive typings. So now it's going to change completely the way that they're being played. Of course, more variety in typings is never bad. It may give us a reason to use the Spin and Frost forms, for example. But the others would probably say, please don't change a winning formula, because that's what they essentially did. And at least every Rotom form retains Levitate. Could you imagine an electric fire without Levitate? Earthquake says hi. But this also means that we get a flying type with Levitate. Congratulations, Game Freak. Clearly, you haven't really thought this all the way through, did you? Number 3, the several move upgrades that we've had. It's become sort of a tradition for each generation to upgrade a few moves, and, well, these aren't all the ones that were upgraded, but those were the most relevant. Of course, stuff like Clamp and Fire Spin and Magma Storm no one cares about, didn't put them here, but there are a few other interesting ones. For example, Giga Drain and Drain Punch were both increased from 60 to 75, which also sort of explains why they're not TMs anymore, because suddenly they become very, very viable options. Giga Drain in particular is only 5 power away from Energy Ball, and all that with a much, much better side effect. Same for Drain Punch, which now matches Brick Break, though Drain Punch's learn base is a bit iffy. It's not nearly every fighting type out there, so it doesn't benefit as many Pokemon as Giga Drain. Next up are Bullet Seed and Icicle Spear, which went from 10 to 25, all while retaining their 100 accuracy somehow. And, of course, this is why Bullet Seed isn't a TM anymore, but it can still benefit Technician and Skill Link users tremendously. I'm thinking about, for example, Cloyster, who now basically ends up with a 125 power physical ice move, which is actually fairly good, especially since it's a good sub-breaking move as well. And as for Bullet Seed, people have been claiming that it was going to be awesome on Technician Breloom. However, there's just one problem. It's that Bullet Seed is no longer a TM, and to boot, even though it's on Breloom's egg move list, it's highly unlikely that we'll be able to breed Dream World abilities on Pokemon. So that means if you want Bullet Seed, you'll have to keep Poison Heal, which sort of defeats the whole purpose. Same for Drain Punch, which isn't even boosted by Technician anymore anyway. So I think Poison Heal will still remain the bog standard for Breloom, since Technician does nothing but upgrade Mach Punch. And finally we got upgrades that I can argue were unnecessary because the moves were already good enough. Jump Kick has been upgraded to 100 power and High Jump Kick to 130. Now, this means a lot to certain Pokemon like Blaziken, who, on top of this, also got Speed Boost. I'll come back to this later. So, yeah, nowadays, High Jump Kick is going to be completely stapled on whatever gets it. 130 power, 90 accuracy. Of course, there's that 10% chance that you're utterly going to destroy yourself, but it's worth the risk, definitely. Number 2, the Twist Ending. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this since I know people don't want to be spoiled, but for those who were already spoiled, then you know what I'm talking about. A twist ending in a Pokemon game? Really? The first 4 generations all had the exact same ending, so for us to get a twist after 14 years is actually really, really awesome. And people said after learning about it that now they understood fully why Famitsu gave it a perfect score of 40 out of 40, which very rarely happens, by the way. And yes, there is something that manages to top the twist ending for number 1 spit-take moment of Black and White, and it is Dream World abilities. Now, everyone's heard about these, as it's been definitely the most discussed aspect of the game, and those abilities really are going to change everything as much as they are hyped to. I don't need to give many examples, but let's just go over the main ones, shall we? Well, understandably, the ones that the most people are worried about are Drought, Ninetales, and Drizzle Politoed, and for very good reason, because as a part of Smogon's Create a Pokemon project, they made a test to see if Drought and Drizzle were overpowered even on complete fodder. They made the test using level 1 Kyogre and Groudon, and the verdict was clear. It still was overpowered, even though you essentially used a full team slot just to set up Rain or Sun. However, I am not overly worried about that because Generation 5 is obviously going to be a whole different game. There are a bazillion Pokemon that just got a lot, and I mean a lot better. So, maybe Drought and Drizzle, while being integral parts of the metagame, will still blend in fairly well with the rest. It's a problem of philosophy mostly, because when Diamond and Pearl came out, a lot of Pokemon taken individually then plugged into the Generation 3 metagame would have been uber. But since everyone just got so much better, I don't know, I think Ninetales and Politoed will manage to not get sent to Ubers, though then again, that's just pure speculation. I have nothing to prove what I'm saying, no battle experience in a Generation 5 setting. No one has, by the way. And of course, Ninetales and Politoed are helped by the fact that they were fairly unspectacular guys to begin with. So, had it been something like, Drizzle Gyarados and Drought Heatran, well then, the choice would have been easy. Banhammer! But since it's Ninetales and Politoed, maybe they're just gonna manage to survive. And other than these two, everyone's favorite, I'm pretty sure, is Speed Boost Blaziken. When Infernape was created, it was sort of a band-aid to fix what was wrong with Blaziken, such as the middling speed, of course, and Infernape also has a much wider move pool than Blaziken to hit stuff with, but Blaziken always hit harder and always will, and now Speed Boost takes away Infernape's speed advantage as well. So, will Blaziken top Infernape? Probably, but still doesn't mean that Infernape is completely obsoleted. Infernape has an actual special move pool to speak of, and on top of that, it already has more speed right off the bat, which can make a pretty huge difference in some scenarios. Other than that, overconfidence on Gyarados and Salamence. These two really need no introduction anymore. They were so powerful already. Salamence even got sent to Ubers for crying out loud, and now they're given an ability that boosts their attack every time they kill something. So suddenly getting a full sweep with these two got suddenly a whole lot easier, even though you're giving up Intimidate. Intimidate, which may be a fairly hard ability to give up on, and in Salamence's case it also means giving up on Outrage, since the move tutor isn't available for overconfident Salamence. And besides, it's not like Outrage is well designed for full sweeps. It's Dragon Claw that's the move you want, in case you want to do that. Other than that, we also got Water Absorb Suicune, as if it wasn't bulky enough already, and Zapdos, which got the new and improved Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod now works like a motor drive that boosts special attack instead of speed. It was about time, as many of you will say, since it was completely worthless before, but now Zapdos has an even easier time attacking for lots of damage, even though, once again, you'll be forced to give up on Heat Wave since the move tutor isn't available anymore. We also got Magic Guard Alakazam, which means, in layman's terms, that the Life Orb is now permanently stapled on this guy. Don't bother using anything else. You got a 30% boost to all your attacks with no drawback whatsoever. So Alakazam has its tickets back into Overused. Will it take it? Only time will tell. But probably. That's my prediction anyway. Other than that, Technician Breloom, which I already mentioned, and it's, in my opinion, one of the more overrated ones, because Bullet Seed isn't an option, Drain Punch isn't an option, Giga Drain isn't an option even, so it just ends up being an upgrade to Mach Punch. And by the way, Technician Breloom isn't a Scizor with Spore, because Scizor has a lot of assets that a Breloom without Poison Heal doesn't have, especially Scizor's excellent bulk against anything that is not a fire move. And we'll close this off with two of my favorites, Shadow Tag, Gochiruzeru, and Shandera. Now, Shadow Tag was another ability that many people thought would mean instant Uber, but it's also the fact that Wobbuffet doesn't have just Shadow Tag, but also the combination of Encore, Counter, and Mirror Coat, and a perfect stat spread for the job, whereas these two, they haven't quite got it. Of course, it will be quite fun to send Shadow Tag Shandera in on a choiced fighting move, and then set up 6 Calm Minds and destroy everything. Well, except for the fact that Shandera's speed is rather middling, so I don't think it's gonna work that way. In conclusion, what we've seen in the last few days paved the road for the game we'll be playing for the next 4 years, and I personally am thrilled to enter this brand new experience, and I definitely hope you are too. So let us enjoy everything that Issue has to offer.